experience is the one thing your competitor can't copy because it's delivered by your people and only you have your people. And so this is why I believe it's not only the best competitive advantage, I think it's the only one left. And therefore, if you're not focused on it, you're falling behind.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I'm Engage President Jake Olson. Alongside me today, a fascinating gentleman, Dan Gingiss. Dan is a customer experience expert, also the author of The Experience Maker. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Jake. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Absolutely. And Dan, I say you're a fascinating man. One of the reasons is you started off as a bartender. So I want to know, if I come over right now, what drink are you going to make me? Like, give me your best one. And then I kind of have a backup question on that one is that, did your bartending experience kind of shape how you now view customer experiences?
Great question. So I do pride myself in having a very full bar at home, so I can make most things that you want me to make. If you ask for the house specialty, it'll be a cherry Cosmo, which is
Oh,
made with cherry flavored vodka, triple sec, fresh lime juice, and some cranberry, and it is always a hit.
that sounds good, man. What's just real quick, are you a bourbon guy? Do you like name your nicest bourbon you got there?
Yeah, I'm a big bourbon guy, and I have been more recently getting into tequila because I wanted something a little clearer for the summer. Sometimes the brown stuff is tougher to drink in the summer when it's hot. So I've been really enjoying tequila over the summer, but bourbon's definitely my go-to.
All right, well, not too far away from this camera is my bourbon collection. So another time I'll show you. But okay, so customer experience, you as a bartender, how did that shape that way you viewed that?
Yeah, I actually had a number of roles when I was younger that were service oriented. My first job in high school was delivering pizzas for Domino's. I worked for a hot dog restaurant, serving food and doing parties and stuff. I worked for a catering company that did parties, set up and clean up, that sort of thing. So all of those, I think, taught me a lot about the service aspect of customer experience. One of the things that's important to note is that customer service is just a subset of customer experience. It is actually what happens when the experience breaks. Because if you think about it, we don't ever call customer service unless something's wrong. And so, companies, if you want to save money, make your customer experience perfect, and then nobody will ever call you, and you can save a lot of money on your customer service. But I do think those jobs helped me understand what it's like to take care of a customer and to sort of deliver on their needs. And I've advised my own kids and anybody else that'll listen that I think everybody should have a service job at some point in their lifetime.
Absolutely. And you kind of alluded to one of my questions here, which is, customer service, we think, okay, customer experience, but for an employee at a company who's not forward facing, who's dealing with customers, kind of what is on their shoulders in order to, promote that customer experience?
So I'm a believer that every single employee is in the customer experience business. It doesn't matter your title, where you are in the organization, your job description. What you do ultimately impacts the experience. So let's take somebody that maybe never talks to a customer. Let's take somebody, say, in the accounting department. Well, that person is probably in charge of sending out invoices. What is written on the invoice is part of the experience, not just the numbers that are there, but maybe there's a joke at the bottom. Maybe there is something that makes you smile. One of the examples I share in my presentation sometimes is a restaurant that when they bring the bill, they have it attached to the tines of a fork, and there's a sign that says fork it over. And so now all of a sudden you're smiling when it's time to pay the bill, which is, of course, not the most fun part of going out to dinner. And so, why can't an accounting person be thinking about that as well? That same accounting person might be making decisions about ways that you can pay. Can you use this credit card or that credit card? Can you use credit cards at all? What are the payment terms? Net 30, net 60. Those are all part of the experience. So, even if they never speak to a customer directly, they're making decisions every day that impact customers. And so, when I go into an organization, to me, the best setup is when I get to talk to everybody at once because if we can get everybody on the same page with customer experience and everybody understanding that they're all experience makers, no matter what they do in the business, that's where you start to move the culture towards being customer centric.
No, that's so correct and very interesting to think about it that way. I've read that you kind of say customer experience is the best competitive advantage a business can have. So along those lines, that's probably one of the reasons why.
Yeah, and if you think about what are the other potential competitive advantages, well, you could compete on price, but frankly, that's a losing game. It's a race to the bottom, and very, very few companies are successful at competing on price because in many cases, customers don't want the cheapest, right? They want the best. Secondly, is competing on product or service. The problem there is that almost every product or service eventually gets copied. And if you want proof of that, look at one of the most innovative companies of our generation, which was Uber, which we all know the story about how they completely upended the taxi industry. But today, I'll tell you, when I get into a car at O'Hare Airport, I can't tell you whether it's an Uber or a Lyft because they look exactly the same. And in fact, it's usually both because the driver's literally working for both companies. So one of the most innovative companies of our generation now has, in my opinion, a completely undifferentiated product. So if you can't compete on price and you can't compete on product, to me, the only thing left is experience. And the good thing is, experience is the one thing your competitor can't copy because it's delivered by your people and only you have your people. And so this is why I believe it's not only the best competitive advantage, I think it's the only one left. And therefore, if you're not focused on it, you're falling behind.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Can you walk us through your WISE framework?
Yeah, of course. So WISE is an acronym, and the goal of WISE is to create remarkable experiences at scale. So what do I mean by that? It means that every interaction that we have with a customer has a chance of being an experience that they remember. The question is whether we take advantage of that and turn it into that. So I am not a believer that customer experience has to be a multi-million dollar, multi-year transformational project. I am a believer that customer experience is about doing the little things right each and every day. And that's what WISE is about because I want people to be wise to the power of customer experience. So WISE stands for witty, immersive, shareable, and extraordinary. And very briefly, witty is about having fun. It's about being clever with the language that we use. And it's about leveraging every single communication channel we have, including invoices, to just create an experience for people. Because anytime you can make somebody smile or make them engaged or surprise them in some way, they're going to like you more and they're going to be more into you and your brand.
Uh,
Second is immersive, and that's about creating experiences that people feel in their bones. And that's what basically memories are made of. And usually that involves either appealing to one of the five senses or appealing to people's emotions. If you think back to some of your best childhood memories, chances are there is at least one sense involved. You can smell, taste, hear, or touch or see something in the memory, and then there's also likely some sort of emotion involved. You were happy, you were sad, you were scared, you were angry. And that is, again, what memories are made of. So as companies, we can intentionally, strategically create immersive experiences using both the senses and emotions. Shareable is about understanding that there are moments in every consumer or business buyer's day in which they pull this thing out. Make sure you can see that. That's an iPhone. And they pull that out because something is happening that they want to capture on either a picture or a video. Now, most of the time, nobody tells them to take it out. There's no sign that says it is now time to take a picture. They just do it because the moment strikes them. And again, strategically, we can create moments where we know our customers are going to do that. We can intentionally design them so that they do that. And then what do? After they take that picture or that video, they share it with people. And they might share it with followers on social media. That's great. Or they might share it with a friend, a family member, a colleague, a neighbor. That's great too. Imagine if you're a roofing company. All you really need is every one of your customers just to tell the next door neighbor on both sides. That's it. You don't need them to tell a million people. If every customer told just their neighbors, look at what happens to your business. So that's what being shareable is. And then finally, extraordinary is about simply being better than ordinary. And most of the experiences that we have with brands are ordinary. They are unremarkable. They just are. And the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is really not that much. In fact, it is often just a little bump. The bar is on the floor. So all you have to do is kind of step over it. You don't have to high jump over it. And so extraordinary is about finding those moments, those little parts of your experience where you can just do a small surprise and delight, basically by doing things differently than anybody else does it. And so the way to think of extraordinary is anytime you hear somebody say, because we've always done it that way, or because everyone else does it that way, then you know for a fact that you're ordinary and it's time to become extraordinary.
And that's awesome stuff, man. I love that. So we've been talking a lot about customer experience. Obviously, you're a customer experience expert, but that's not only what who your talks are meant for. Pretend you're talking to an event planner right now. Kind of help them understand how your talk can be applied to audiences who again aren't necessarily people who are looking for an experienced expert.
So when I talk to event planners, first of all, I tend to work with three groups of people mostly. I work with corporations, and that can be usually medium to large size corporations. Although what I talk about certainly applies to small businesses. But I came from large corporate America, and so that's often why I get called upon because I worked for brands like Discover and McDonald's that people, recognize and appreciate. I also have a particular focus on franchise businesses because one of the biggest challenges they have is replicating experience at scale across multiple locations. And so what I teach is so easily scalable and replicable that it really works well for franchises. And then, of course, as many speakers do, I love speaking to associations because there's so many organizations and companies that are within associations. And we can talk about both the member experience and also the customer experience of the members, right? So you can kind of double team on that with associations.
Well, Dan, your message is very applicable, and we really appreciate you allowing us to help you get it out there. So if you want to learn more about Dan, you can visit letsengage.com, check out his profile there, of course, book him. And yes, absolutely get Dan to your next event. Might even make you a drink. So Dan, thank you so much for your time tonight.
You got it. Thank you, Jake. And thanks for all that you're doing for the industry as well. The times that we've gotten to work together have really been fun and a pleasure. And I look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Stay tuned for more Engage Presents.